Yeah.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's in the diaper. It's in the diaper.
I understand that.
Clerk Spencer, will you call the roll, please?
Steve. Pezza. Here. Gudenkauf. Here. Leader.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Bram.
Here.
Lumsky. Here. York.
Here.
Hipskin.
Here.
Healy.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Morley.
Here.
Wagner, absent. Mulliner.
Here.
13 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. At this point, I would like to move to the next item on the agenda, and I'd ask Val Stewart, who's a member of the board of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation, to take the podium for a special recognition award.
Thank you. And happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you to the City Council and Mr. Grabowski for giving me the opportunity to address the council tonight. Before I get started, I'd like to acknowledge the other members of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation Board of Directors who are here with me tonight. If you'll all just raise your hand and wave. Thank you. I'm Val Stewart, board member and past president of the Elmhurst Heritage Foundation, which is the supporting organization for the Elmhurst Historical Museum and the Churchville One-Room Schoolhouse. Our current exhibit at the Elmhurst Historical Museum, entitled Centuries of Progress, America's World's Fairs, runs through January 6th. It's a wonderful exhibit on loan from the Hagley Museum in Delaware. The exhibit documents America's World's Fairs with 125 objects, photographs, videos, memorabilia from fairs hosted in Tennessee, New York, and the 2 big ones in Chicago, the 1893 Columbian Exposition and the 1933 Centuries of Progress. In another gallery, we've put a local Elmhurst twist on World's Fairs with our own exhibit entitled Elmhurst Goes to the Fair. The exhibit features Elmhurst's own Thomas Barber Bryan. You may recognize the name, for that's the fellow that Bryan Middle School is named after. Bryan was a vice president of the fair in 1893 and actually entertained many international dignitaries at his home here in Elmhurst. Elmhurst Goes to the Fair also includes the story of Dorothy Brush. She was a local Elmhurst woman living in the 1930s, and she kept a personal diary and scrapbook of her many visits to the 1933 World's Fair in Chicago. Dorothy passed away several years ago, but left us her collection, her scrapbook and diary, which is part of the exhibit at the museum. By the way, the museum is open Tuesday through Sunday, 1 to 5 p.m., for those who'd like to visit. More importantly, I'm also here to introduce to you, and I think you probably all know them already, Willis and Shirley Johnson, owners of Classic Cinemas, which of course includes our own historic York Theater. Willis and Shirley are supporting the Centuries of Progress exhibit as lead sponsors. Our thanks to them for being longtime Elmhurst Heritage Foundation supporters, members, and donors. Please join us in thanking the Johnsons for their work in keeping the history of our community alive through their major renovation of the York Theater years ago in 1991, and for taking an active role today in the museum through supporting of our exhibits and participation in our many events and programs. Thank you again for the opportunity to recognize the Johnsons tonight, and I think Willis would like to say a few words. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Shirley and I want to thank you for this recognition. We believe strongly in preserving our heritage for future generations, which the Elmhurst Historical Museum does so well. We appreciated the opportunity to sponsor this present exhibit on the World's Fair and hope that if you haven't seen it, you will take the time to learn and appreciate the work that Bryan and his staff do. Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Willis. Before we move on to the next item of business, I wanted to comment that last Friday's events in Newtown, Connecticut are those that are very hard for any of us to comprehend. I'd say more so for any of us who are parents. As a community that's likely quite similar to Newtown, we understand the pain and personal devastation that this tragedy has caused on the families of the victims and all the townspeople there. Our thoughts and prayers are with them. Let's observe a moment of silence in memory of the Newtown children and school staff whose lives were taken under such tragically, shockingly sad circumstances. Okay, thank you very much. At this point, we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is receipt of written communications or petitions from the public. If anyone has such a communication or petition, please come forward and deliver it to Clerk Spencer. There being none, we'll move on to public forum. Clerk Spencer, are there any individuals signed up to speak this evening?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have 4 people. I'll start with Gilbert Fisher, 586 Van Auken.
All right, Mr. Fisher, as you know, and as always, we'll allow 3 minutes for public comment per person. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Yes. Yes. Gilbert Fisher, 586 North Van Auken in Elmhurst. This year, my wife and I did not have any money to pay the second part of our house taxes, and we do not understand this. Our house has been paid for in full since 1989. We owe nothing on credit cards, and yet we don't have the money to pay the taxes on our house. In 2008, the taxes from the city of Elmhurst on our house was $70. 2009, it jumped up to $197. 2010, it went up to $241. This year, for 2011, the taxes on our house for the city of Elmhurst went up to $251. I don't understand why I have no money to pay the taxes on my house. 2 years ago, the federal government charged me $98 a month to receive my pension from the U.S. Post Office. This year, they charged me $175 a month to receive my pension from the U.S. Post Office, the money I already paid taxes on. 2 years ago, my taxes went up on a total of 5.6%. In 2010, last year, my taxes went up a total of over 12%. This year, my taxes went up between 6 and 7%. I just don't understand why we don't have money to pay the taxes on a house that is fully paid for. There's one other thing that my wife and I are worried about or questioning. A U.S. senator, a black man from Chicago, used a racial slur against white people. I never did learn what that word is. If anybody can figure out what that word is that he used against white people, I would like to find out. I spent 6 years in the Army, and I've been sworn at in 9 different languages. I've been shot at on 3 different continents. And if somebody's swearing at me, I'd like to know what the racial words were. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher.
Next, we have Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys.
My name is Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys. I'd like to thank the assistant manager. He gave me an answer to a question I asked last time I was at the meeting. In case the aldermen don't know, it cost me $100 a square foot for that land on Addison. Better than $100 a square foot. Quite a deal, ain't it? Well, I guess I can drop that now. Deal is done. But there was discussion about consultants. And what we have is we have a city manager and we have an assistant city manager. And now we got 2 consultants that are coming up for vote. They're going to be put on retention, $100 an hour. It's interesting. A lot of it is based on their last contract, which was for 3 years, and now we got another 3-year contract. But part of that contract said they would periodically come to this council and tell the council what they were doing in 3 years, and I haven't sat here the full 3 years. I have never seen either one of those gentlemen come here to explain anything they do. When asked if there was a conflict of interest by an alderman, the best we got is from the Finance Committee. Our legal department showed up, said something, they can't remember what he said, and they think he said it was okay. Okay what? Okay, he's got a conflict, okay, he can have the job. Don't know. But why am I paying over $400,000 a year? I got a city manager, I got an assistant city manager. What do I have to have 2 consultants for at $100 an hour, and they're going to spend every nickel of it, and I know it. So you guys can think about that one. The other thing is, I wish the Finance Committee, when they discussed how much money I was going to save on property taxes, would have said something about general obligation bonds. $70 million worth of obligation bonds. The last time I asked the city what they had, it was $60 million, and they were paying over $7 million a year to get rid of them. Now I got $70 million worth of general obligation bonds. What is that going to cost me? So I guess this tax I got break don't amount to anything because I just gave it away. And the last thing is Mr. Bram. You live up on the north side and you got a supermarket coming in, and I'm assured the city let you look at the drawings. Is there a requirement under that parking lot for water retention? Is it or is it not a fact? Because if it's not, I'd hate to see you get phone calls at 2 in the morning saying the north side is flooded. It's common practice in other suburbs around this town.
Your 3 minutes are up. Thank you.
Bob Pfister, care of Advanced Disposal, 1660 Hubbard Avenue, Batavia.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Bob Pfister. I'm the Municipal Marketing Manager for Advanced Disposal, 1660 Hubbard Avenue in Batavia. Thank you for allowing me this time to speak with you tonight. What I'd like to do tonight is ask you for your consideration of the Advanced Disposal proposal for the refuse collection contract that you'll be discussing later on this evening. A few points that I'd like to make here is, number one, I'd like to thank the staff. They did a great job at reviewing all the proposals. There were 4 quality proposals that were opened, Advanced Disposal being one of them. Advanced Disposal is $688,000 over 5 years under the current provider. But that comes with a caveat. We proposed a 4-day-a-week collection, Tuesday through Friday, where your current provider proposed the current 3-day-a-week, Wednesday through Friday. What's not in the analysis is that Advanced Disposal also proposed a senior rate of $12.58, and the seniors would get a 35-gallon refuse cart for that. When you factor that in, the difference climbs over $750,000 based on just 1,500 residents taking that senior rate. It's not a senior discount, it's a senior rate. Seniors produce less garbage, they get a smaller container. It addresses the senior need in the community, but that's not in the analysis, but I just like to point it out. Also, our stickers are 20% less, $2.40 a sticker versus $2 a sticker. We think that's significant for people that once in a while will have an overage from their 65-gallon cart. I think the choice is simple for you tonight, is you can go to a 4-day-a-week collection, Tuesday through Friday, and save $750,000 over 5 years. Or you can keep your current 3-day-a-week collection and pay the extra $750,000. But it's a simple decision in my mind to whether you want to go to 4-day or 3-day. We're both quality companies. We both provide quality service. We have references that can show that we can do the work. So it shouldn't be an issue of whether one company can do it, one company can't. It's whether it's a 4-day-a-week or a 3-day-a-week collection. So I want to thank you tonight. Happy holidays to everybody. I'm here to answer any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We have 2 remaining. Patrick Miller, and that's care of Roy Storm, 311 South Wacker Drive, Suite 4400, Chicago.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members. My name is Patrick Miller. I'm a partner at the law firm of Faegre Baker Daniels, and I'm here on behalf of my client, Roy Strom, Refuse Removal Service, Inc., also to talk about the residential refuse removal contract that you'll be considering later tonight. My remarks are focused in 2 areas. 1, I have 2 concerns with respect to the current status of the procurement, and 2, I have 1 request, which I'll get to at the end of my remarks. Number 1, with respect to the concerns, my understanding of where we are in the procurement process is that the request for proposals was issued November 1. My client submitted a response with its qualification pursuant to the solicitation on November 20 as requested. It submitted both the qualitative and price proposals requested by the city. On December 4, 2012, my client received a telephone call from Mr. Hughes indicating that it had been removed from the procurement based on its qualifications. I'm relaying this second or third, fourth hand at this point, but my understanding of that conversation is that they were removed from the process based on the fact that they had not worked for communities of the size that Elmhurst represents. Based on the meeting minutes that I reviewed on the city website from last Monday's committee meeting, we learned at that point that price proposals had in fact been opened without consideration of Roy Strom. I'm not aware of what has occurred with Roy Strom's price proposal at this point. And with all of that being said, my 2 concerns are as follows. Number 1, the procurement solicitation references this as a solicitation for professional services. We have a concern that refuse removal is not a professional service under Illinois law. Therefore, we have a concern that the solicitation should be done through competitive bidding requirements, and it was not. Number 2, the solicitation in referencing sizes of communities, it did not reference size of communities as a factor upon which folks or responding bidders would be judged. And so our second concern is that the consideration of the qualifications of the Roy Strom firm, and we believe they are qualified to win this work, were based on something other than what was contained in the solicitation, which is also a concern of ours under Illinois law. So what are we asking for? What do we want to do about that? And that's my 1 request. My firm would like to submit a written request formalizing and reiterating the points I've made here this evening. We propose to do that by this Friday, which would give the committee and the council the opportunity to consider that before the January 7 meeting. And so we're requesting that to the extent the reference in item 8 on the agenda is actually going to result in an award of the contract this evening, we would ask that the council refrain from doing that for purposes of allowing it to consider what we would like to submit in writing as I've requested.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last, we have Richard Vandermolen, 5050 West Lake Street, Melrose Park.
Mr. Mayor, Alderman, Alderwomen, my name is Rich Vandermolen. I'm with Allied Waste. Our company provided the lowest cost and best proposal as evaluated by the Public Works and Buildings Committee. Our proposal was fully compliant with all aspects of the RFP. You can evaluate our service level based on firsthand experience. Your existing program is a good one, which will only be better with the new program changes. Over the past 5 years, our company has assisted the city with disaster recovery efforts 6 times. We have demonstrated both the capability and willingness to assist the city when called upon. We're requesting award of a contract. Thank you for your business and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Just generally for those who are new here, it's not the practice of the council to respond to the public comments, but we appreciate your coming out and exchanging your views with us. All right, at this time, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is announcements. Are there any announcements from the council? Someone should make an announcement, so I'll make one. There's a blood drive on December 26th at Elmhurst Public Library, 11 o'clock a.m. till 6 o'clock p.m. You can go to the library's website, or you may call the library. It's a good cause, and we hope to get a good community participation. Any other announcements? Very good. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Would any of the council members wish to remove any of the items from the consent agenda? Alderman Mulliner?
Item L.
L?
L.
Very good. Alderman Bram?
Item J.
Okay. Any other items? All right, may I have a motion to, I'm sorry, Alderman.
Thank you. Items R and S, like Sam.
R and S. Anything else? All right, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda minus items J, L, R, and S? Alderman Healy? Motion. Alderman Pezza with a second. All in favor? Roll call. I'm sorry. Please call the roll.
Healy.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Weider.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Bram.
Aye.
Polumsky. Aye. York.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Wagner, absent. Mulliner.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
All right, we'll proceed. That motion carries. The consent agenda minus the 4 items is approved. We'll move on to item J, and if we could have the clerk read the title of that ordinance, please.
An ordinance authorizing the purchase of paperless agenda system hardware for the city of Elmhurst.
We may have a motion to place it before the council. Alderman Hipskin with a second by Alderman York. Alderman Hipskin?
Yeah, are there any questions?
All right.
Okay.
Alderman Bram?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My one question on this item was in regards to where the monies are coming from for this item. I do know that in the report it does mention an account number, but from my recollection of the last budget discussion, I personally removed this item out of the budget, and we all voted on it to remove that item out of the budget of purchasing at least the hardware being the laptop. So I'm confused if this is coming from another account item or if that item was never removed from the budget as requested by the council last year during budget time.
Well, that's a great question, and I don't quite know the answer. Marilyn, I believe that we had it budgeted in the...
Does finance manager want to address the council? No.
That's what I thought too. You know, we've been going through this for this has been on the agenda for actually years, quite honestly, and I believe it was budgeted. We'll check on that and you know, let you know. But I'm pretty sure it was budgeted. Your removal of it, I don't remember whether we did that or not.
Alderman Bram, did you have a follow-up?
No, my recollection was, and I could not find the meeting minutes in time for this meeting, but that I made the motion when we went through some of the items to remove this item because I did not feel that we should be purchasing laptops for all the elected officials, albeit a minimal amount of under $20,000, $17,500. From, again, my recollection, I thought that was done and therefore was not in this current budget cycle. So I wanted to make sure before proceeding with this line item that it actually was allocated in the budget, because I recall us voting on it to remove it from last year's budget.
Alderman Gutenkopf.
I'm just wondering if the alderman remembers what the budget line was, because it's not in the ordinance. It would have been in the report, which of course I don't have in front of me.
I do have, may I, Mr. Mayor, respond? Please. I do have the report with me, and I do have the budget line item with me tonight, if that would help staff. But we can move forward with this, but my concern was that I thought it was removed.
All right.
Oh, you want the number?
Alderman Healy.
The number is 110-2008-413-80-31. But that's going to be the old budget book before passing anyway.
Well,
Alderman Healy.
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have the budget book that shows that line is still in the budget, and then I also have from Director of Finance Gaston from April 12, 2012, all adjustments that the council made during the budget process, and there is no subtraction from the budget. Now, I recall that we did remove it from the budget 2 cycles ago. I don't recall it removing it from the cycle this time, and it's in the budget, and it's not in the final adjustment memo from this year's budget.
All right. Alderman York.
Thank you, Your Honor. A couple points here. I think number one, Alderman Bram referred to the laptops being for the alderman, but the laptops that we're purchasing actually are for all city staff to use on mobile assignments. They weren't intended to go home with the alderman. There will be, I'm sure, cases from time to time when an alderman will need to take one home, but they're being used for multiple things. And then, you know, this is just one of those things too that I think, and I'd like to thank Alderman Healy for having his budget book here this evening and for filling in for us. But one of those things that an email or a call to one of us so we could be prepared for this question would be kind of helpful too. So in the future, if we could, it'd be appreciated. Thank you.
Alderman Bram.
Yes, nothing more to add. I also thank Alderman Healy. I did remember discussing it. I do remember removing it. It could have been 2 years ago. I see Marilyn Gaston nodding her head, so maybe it's 2 cycles compared to last year. And thank you, Alderman York, for the clarification. When we did discuss it last, my at least interpretation was that these were allocated for the elected officials. It's good to hear that these are not being purchased only for the elected officials, but there will be multiple uses. Thank you.
All right, any other discussion before we vote? All right, then we're voting on item J. Clerk Spencer, call the roll, please.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Wagner, absent. Mulliner.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Gutenkopf. Aye. Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Bram.
Aye.
Polumsky.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
Very good. The motion passes. We're moving on to item L. Clerk Spencer, please take a deep breath and read the ordinance.
An ordinance amending Chapter 2 entitled City Council and Chapter 3 entitled City Administration of the Municipal Code of Ordinances of the City of Elmhurst, Illinois, by adding thereto Section 2.13 entitled Prohibition of Aldermen simultaneously holding multiple public elective offices in Illinois, Section 3.012 entitled Prohibition of Mayors simultaneously holding multiple public elected offices in Illinois, Section 3.032 entitled Prohibition of Clerk simultaneously holding multiple public elected offices in Illinois, and Section 3.052 entitled Prohibition of Treasurer holding multiple public elected offices in Illinois.
And the ordinance is actually longer than the title. Could I have a motion to put it on the floor? Alderman Mulliner, second by Alderman York. Any discussion? Alderman Mulliner.
Yeah, the only reason I pulled this was to highlight the fact that this was an ordinance that has been created because of the fact that we went for referendum. As a council, we made a decision to go for referendum, and I wanted the public to be aware of the fact that the ordinance is going into place this evening, and that as of this evening, when this is passed and signed by the mayor, the acting mayor, we will no longer allow people to hold multiple offices who are sitting as an elected official in the city of Elmhurst.
Very good. Any other comments? All right, let's, Clerk Spencer, let's call the roll on this one.
Mulliner.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Wagner, absent. Pezza.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Bram.
Aye.
Polumsky.
Aye.
13 ayes, 0 nays, 1 absent.
The ordinance passes. Thank you. On to item R. Clerk Spencer, please read the title.
A resolution authorizing the execution of a consulting agreement between Van Slyke Enterprises, Inc. and the City of Elmhurst, Illinois.
May I have a motion to put this before the council? Alderman Hipskin, with a second by Alderman York. Any introductory discussion?
I propose that we pass this contract or resolution in its entirety. We've had a lot of time to discuss this and go back and forth on it. And tonight's just a final portion to it.
Alderman Pezza.
Thank you, Mayor. We have had a lot of time to discuss this, and I think everyone knows where I stand. My mind has not changed, and to say more would be like beating dead horses. So I pulled it because I will not support this.
Very good. Any other discussion? Alderman Gutenkopf.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that there's an additional component of something that should have been in these contracts that really isn't, and I think that's the fault of us as a city council, not recognizing that if we're going to engage contractors to do work for us, we should have a very clear sense of how we're going to make sure that they're successful at what they're doing. That we need well-established criteria to evaluate their outcomes. And unfortunately, neither this contract nor the following agenda item even broaches the subject of how do we know that what they're doing for us is successful. And I think that's a terrible oversight. I said it before, I think that there are duties here that could clearly be handled by other staff members, and I can't support this contract for both of those reasons.
Any other discussion? All right, there being none, Clerk Spencer, call the roll.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Wagner. Absent. Mulliner.
Aye.
Pezza.
No.
Gutenkopf.
No.
Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Bram.
No.
Polumsky.
Aye.
10 ayes, 3 nays, 1 absent.
The resolution passes. On to item S. Clerk Spencer, please read the resolution title.
A resolution authorizing the execution of a consulting agreement between Ken Bartels and the City of Elmhurst, Illinois.
Motion by Alderman Hipskin, second by Alderman York. Discussion?
No discussion, I think.
All right. We will then, if there's none, we will move directly to the voting, and I'll ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Wagner. Absent. Mulliner.
Aye.
Pezza.
No.
Gutenkopf.
No.
Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Bram.
No.
Palumski. Aye. 10 ayes, 3 nays, 1 absent.
All right, that resolution also passes. We're on to item 8 on our agenda, committee reports, and we're on, if you read the recommendation, item 8.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Buildings Committee that the proposals supplied by Allied Waste for the 2013 through 2018 Refuge and Recycling Services contract be approved, and that the city attorney prepare the appropriate documents, and that the appropriate city officials be authorized to sign the documents. Respectfully submitted, Public Works and Buildings Committee, signed by Jim Kennedy, Chairman, Bob Dunn, Vice Chairman, Chris Healy, and Diane Gutenkopf.
May I have a motion? Alderman Kennedy, second by Alderman Dunn. Alderman Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a subject that we've been discussing in Public Works now for 9+ months, and culminating tonight in a recommendation for services for Allied Waste to continue servicing the city of Elmhurst for its refuse pickup. I'll go into the long process, but in the end, we came up with Allied Waste being the best value for all the residents for the services that they provide for us. So going back 9 months ago, what we began our discussions with was understanding, as we're going out into the bidding process, what were we going to be looking for in a vendor that could potentially replace Allied. And what we wanted to make sure is that that vendor was as good or better than what we currently have. City staff has a very good relationship with Allied. They have had very good service with Allied, and it's a situation whereby there are not a lot of resources that are required to manage this service because they do an excellent job for us. The Allied folks come in every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. They pick up a list of any issues. They deal with those things, and the progress goes forward. Typically, the people that call up for complaints are really more people that forgot to put their garbage out, and so they call up the city. City coordinates with Allied. Allied gets somebody out to pick it up, and away they go. And historically has been a very good situation. So as we looked at this, we wanted to make sure that we had a good person to, go forward in this service. So when we developed the RFQ, we put in basically 5 pieces that ultimately were how we evaluated these different vendors. And that was making sure they had relevant experience, their emergency response experience. Allied has done an outstanding job for us, so anybody that we chose, we wanted to make sure that would be able to help us in our times of needs like we've had with floods and windstorms over the many years. We want to make sure that if they had issues, they would respond to those from a complaint response standpoint, that they were going to communicate their plan effectively, and they had a detailed plan showing us as to how they were going to go about making that transition. As we looked at our current garbage contract and the way it's structured, a couple of things we wanted to keep the same, many things we wanted to change. First and foremost was a move away from the individual garbage cans that people have and to go to exclusively a toter-based system. What that allows us for is certainly a safer system for the waste hauler because the garbage man doesn't have to get out and actually physically deal with garbage cans. It's similar to those people that have a 95-gallon toter here today. Mechanically, the truck picks it up, dumps it into the garbage truck, and away they go off to the next house. What we wanted to make sure is that the new system would be able to do that for both recyclables and for a waste standpoint. As we looked at it, we thought to develop the program we wanted to have 2 sizes of toters. Right now we have people with 33-gallon garbage cans and 95-gallon toters. We ultimately came to the point we wanted to have 95-gallon toters, same as always, but a 65-gallon toter for everyone else. So basically everybody who's in a 33 was going to be stepped up to a 65-gallon toter, again allowing for a safer approach to be done. What we also wanted, and what was a main point of the RFQ, was we wanted to stay with a 3-day pickup system. Right now we have a system whereby it's basically divided up by the railroad tracks in the city. So if you're between Chicago and Northwestern tracks, and I call them the ICG tracks from, I don't know what they're called now, but the tracks that go by 7-Eleven. If you're in that area, excuse me? CN, thank you, sir. If you're in that middle band, your garbage gets picked up on Wednesday. If you're south of the CN tracks, thank you, Alderman York, you're on Thursday, and if you're north of Chicago Northwestern, your pickup is on Friday. So we wanted to keep things the same from a continuity standpoint, knowing that there's going to be quite a bit of change as it relates to toters and everything that went along with that. We did have in the RFP that said, okay, we want the base of 3 days with toters, but if you have ideas to save us money, we're all ears. We want to hear what you have to say. So that's what we did with the RFP. And the way we structured it was that we said we wanted to first evaluate the capabilities of each of the vendors in terms of those items that I listed before. And at such point, we decided that some or all of those vendors could do the work for us. We were then going to, at that point, take and open their bids. So it wasn't a fact that we were just looking at the bids. We wanted to first understand if each of the vendors was capable. And so when we started with the 6 vendors and we ultimately pared it down to 4, we felt that the 4 that were evaluated had shown experience and the capabilities to service a city of the size and stature of Elmhurst, and that they would, again, be capable of doing that work. It wasn't to say that the other firms that were evaluated were not good. They just did not show in their documents a history of serving communities the size of Elmhurst in what they currently serve. So we went from that 6 to 4 evaluation. At that point is when city staff opened up the bids and looked at the financial side of the equation. What we ultimately found out, and how we got to this difference of 3 days versus 4 days, was that Veolia, who is now called something different now, Advanced Disposal, for everybody, if you see that in your documents, they provided us only a 4-day bid. And so we as a committee were kind of at a conundrum of, well, are we evaluating 3 days versus 4 days? So what we did in the committee, and you said, okay, we're going to look at the 3-day bid first, and we're going to look at that without considering the 4-day. We're going to put that to the side to initially look at the 3-day.
Alderman Kennedy, just to clarify, you're looking at proposals, not bids, is that correct?
Proposals, yes.
All right, very good.
Yes. Thank you. So we looked at those 3 proposals for the 3-day, and it was clear that the services provided by Allied were the best financially for a total contractual value of $15.12 million over the course of the 5 years of the contract. At that point, again, we saw that Allied was the best point. We then wanted to entertain the contract that, or excuse me, the proposal that was put forth from Veolia as it related to a 4-day bid. But we wanted to first start with, well, what's the value of that difference? And certainly it's a sizable number. It's $690,000, but if you take that and you divide it by the number of residences over 5 years on a monthly basis, it ends up being less than $1 per month for the difference of this service. And to make a long story short, we as a committee ultimately felt that that dollar difference was not significant enough for us to make a change. Now, that change is significant because what was proposed to us from Veolia was that, as we talked about before, we have those 3 bands of service. It was going to be that 25% of each one of those bands was going to be moved from their current day to a Tuesday. So people that are on Wednesday were going to go to Tuesday, people on Thursday, Tuesday, and also people on Friday. And there wasn't a plan to how that was going to be done. Again, as we looked at the minimal cost benefit, the potential disruption, and the fact that we have a great relationship and great track record with Allied, we don't have experience with Veolia or anyone else, there wasn't enough of an impetus for us to entertain the 4-day value, and the committee's decision was to stick with the 3-day decision. Now, a couple of pieces that go into that, the numbers that are related to the total proposal value. Right now, as a city, we have the 95-gallon toter, and today 40% of residents use the 95-gallon toter. We, in the process of our evaluation, believe that there's going to be a significant number of residents are going to go from the 95-gallon toter down to the 65-gallon toter, because there's people that they produce more than 33 gallons, but they don't produce consistently to the 90, so there's going to be an adjustment there. We had information from Glen Ellen where they ultimately went down to only 12.5% of their residents ultimately stuck with a 95-gallon toter. I don't know where they started, but it was a significant difference. So we kind of took the 80-20 rule. We feel it's probably going to be somewhere in the 20% range that people come to the point where they're going to be at using the 95-gallon. So in the end, and I'll finish my comments, we as a committee, and I myself, feel that the best value going forward for the residents is to go with a 5-year contract retaining the services of Allied Waste going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Kennedy. Any other discussion? Alderman Dunn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This contract is a big deal. It's $3 million a year approximately, and over 5 years, that's $15 million. So it's something that we need to be diligent in our assessment of it, and both fair and do our homework regarding making the best decision for the city. This is important. In our citizen survey, we have 98.4% of the citizens rating our refuse service as fair or better. And that's quite a bit better than most of the services. That is better than quite a bit of the services that were evaluated now. A lot of the city services were in the 90%, I think most of them were, but refuge collection is rated fairly high, and that's one thing that surprised me, and it was a compelling reason to make sure we really did a thorough job in this assessment. How pleased the residents were with our refuse collection has ticked up over the past 16 years or so, where it was back in 1996, it was at 91%. So over those past 16 years, we've had extremely low incidence of complaints, much less than 0.1%. This is a decision we need to take seriously. I think our objectives in this particular procurement effort were to undertake a new contract by examining the current refuse and recycling market and the state-of-the-art services that are available and the latest pricing structures. The method we used was to evaluate comprehensive offerings of qualified companies to achieve a comparable or better level of service and a comparable or lower price structure. And I'm pleased that the committee has arrived at that recommendation to have what we view as a higher service level and a lower cost than we currently have. City staff did an excellent job of structuring this process and structuring the RFQ, and the entire time it was transparent and fair. If you look at the benefits of the new service levels, residents are going from 35 gallons to 65 gallons, and they're also will be paying this same price for those particular larger toters. The 95-gallon size will actually drop in price significantly. The other components of the bid, the leaf pickup, spring cleanup, are fairly comparable, and they're a much smaller portion of the overall cost structure of the bid, as well as the stickers. If you look at the actual costs of the Allied bid that we are recommending, and this year, it's estimated by city staff that our cost for the refuge, last year in 2011, our cost was $2.9 million. This year, it's estimated to be $2.98 million, but that included some storm events, which were totaled to be about $130,000. If you look at the escalations that are in all the contracts that we evaluated, that $2.85 million that we would expect to pay this year would continue to grow every year under the existing contract structure, which tended to be 4.5% a year was the escalation clause agreement that we had in there. The new contract that we are looking at varies between 3.1 and 3.9%, but it averages out to be 3.6%. So if you look at what's in the city staff's evaluation, with 20% of the toters being 95 gallons and 80% being 65 gallons, we're looking at a $2.8 million total cost, as opposed to what would expect to be about $2.95 million under the old structure. And those would escalate each year over the next 5 years. And the city, based on those calculations, would enjoy $150,000 per year savings over our current situation, which is a good thing. Looking at 3 or 4 days, the service offerings of 3 or 4 days, Waste Management was one of the bidders, that one of the offerers that submitted a proposal. Their 4-day bid was 16% lower than their 3-day bid. Their 3-day bid was 16% higher. It was $2.5 million more looking at Waste Management's 3-day bid versus their 4-day bid. Veolia did not submit a 3-day bid as requested, but listening to representatives from Veolia, understanding their cost structure, it was obvious that for them to bid a 3-day, the cost would have been considerably higher. And also looking at the Waste Management situation, it's a higher cost structure to have a 3-day pickup. Another thing to note is, and Alderman Kennedy mentioned this in his talk, Allied Waste, in our evaluation of the criteria, the weighted criteria that we set as important to service levels and assurance of a solid service provider, Allied Waste scored in the high 90s in this evaluation, whereas the other offerers were in the mid to low 70s. In closing, the selection process was very sound. I think the right companies submitted proposals, and they all had very reasonable proposals to entertain. But given the strength of the proposals that we reviewed, the risk that we examined, and the pricing structure, I think the highest value for the city is clearly the Allied Waste offering. So I would advocate to support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Dunn. Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a few points to add on to what Alderman Kennedy and Alderman Dunn have said. First, when we narrowed the field from 6 to 4, it was not based solely on experience with communities of similar size. We ranked them on several different criteria, including implementation plan, how long it would take them to switch out toters, community outreach to educate the residents of Elmhurst what we're doing. As you might imagine, if you're going to change garbage pickup providers, a lot of work goes into it, and we looked at all of the companies that was part of the bid, and in fact, some of the companies did not present us that initially and gave it, came back and submitted it. So there were other factors than just size of relative experience. I want to make sure that's clear. Certainly that was part of why we eliminated a couple, but it was not the only thing. When you looked at the proposals after we opened the bids, it was clear that Allied was the best, by far, proposal for a 3-day cycle. So then the question became 3 days or 4 days. And when you looked at the comparison between the 3 and 4 day, the savings are approximately, and I need to stress that because this is all based on forecasts of how many people would stay with 96 as opposed to switch down to 65. So that's important to note. It's about $700,000 we anticipate if we'd have gone to a 4-day cycle. If you break that down further over a five-year contract, that's roughly $10 per house per year, or roughly 88 cents a month. Now, when you take a deeper look at the numbers, that's on average. It would not have broken that way. The way it would have broken is the 96-gallon toters, the people with the 96-gallon toters would have seen a bigger chunk of that. So people at the 65-gallon level would not have seen those kind of savings. In fact, they wouldn't have seen a savings. Finally, the last point I want to make, so I'm sorry, before I make my final point, when I made the decision to sign the report, it was based on, for those kind of savings on average, it was not worth either going to a 4-day cycle and trying to educate the community as to who was changing days, toter switch out, etc. Finally, I think it's important to note, and it's been mentioned a little bit, with this bid, our residents will save money. So when we talk about savings and how much of this or that, this bid, if it's accepted with Allied, will save residents money from where we are today. So it's not just 700 we're talking about. There's roughly 200 year one, and who knows beyond that. But it's a good report. It's a good bid. It keeps us what we have, which was very important to us. And I'd ask for your support. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to start out with thanking the committee. This is my referral along with Alderman Pezza. This is something that we have not done in the city of Elmhurst since, I believe, the mid-90s. We've been extending Allied's contract, or BFI before that, but we have not actually went out for proposal since the mid-90s. So it's been long overdue, and I think the committee did a good job in regards to one of the benefits that Alderman Pezza and I wanted to see coming out of this, and that's saving the residents money. That's finding out what the other alternatives are out there for refuse, and seeing what there is out there from the other service providers. And with that, thank you to the service providers who did provide their proposals and came out to speak tonight. With that said, I do want to voice my concern. We accomplished one of my personal goals with this recommendation, or with this referral, being saving money, also going out for proposals and seeing what's out there, and thirdly, seeing other options. I am disappointed, however, and I voiced this in the previous meeting, of negating one of the current options out there, which one of the service providers actually spoke to tonight, and that's the 32-gallon option. Today, we have a 32 and a 96 by Allied Waste, and 60% of our residents are using the 32, which is the majority, and the minority being 40% use the 96-gallon toter. But with this current proposal, we're forcing the individuals, mostly, albeit seniors, who enjoy the 32-gallon, to a 65-gallon, double the amount, and it might be the same cost today, but it is going to continue to go up in cost, and they are going to see the financial impact of that when they don't need that capacity. It has been stressed to me, the last time I spoke to this, outside of this meeting, I have seen it on websites, I've received emails and a handful of phone calls, not to get rid of the 32-gallon option. So I do want to voice my displeasure with eliminating that option. The feedback when I questioned it in committee and outside of committee was that the 32-gallon option is not viable because it tips over, because it's just too high and skinny and it tips over. Well, if it tips over, it tips over. That's the responsibility of the waste hauler and or the resident. Or maybe design the actual toter a little bit more structurally sound. So I don't think that's a good rationale to force any resident, especially 60% of our residents, to go to a larger toter, being 65 gallons. It was initial, when the committee was discussing it initially, I was very pleased because all three of these options, 32, 65, and 96, were on the table. It was told to me that the reason why the 32 was removed was because of the tip over factor. But we had a refuse service provider come here tonight and speak about how they not only offered that, but offered that at a discount for our seniors. So I'm conflicted with some of the information I heard from overall feedback from the city, and then a service provider here tonight saying, we were promoting that. We were not only promoting it, but we were giving a discount to the seniors, which will be impacted by this the most. The one thing I want to touch on top of that, which hasn't been touched on, was the refuse container. I think this is also an added benefit. Ironically, we're talking about cool cities tonight on a later agenda item, but we're forcing our residents to go to a larger refuse container, which means they'll throw out more trash instead of attempting to recycle. But the refuse container is better. It will have a cover, it is a toter concept, and therefore we won't hopefully see newspapers and everything else being blown around on garbage day throughout the neighborhood. So I'm really happy for that. But I will say that in the next year, I would like the committee to reevaluate this to provide that 32-gallon option coming within the next year. I think that's very important. Again, we're pushing 60% of the residents to go to a larger toter that we're happy with, the smallest toter option, 32. Thank you, committee, and I do support this, but I would like further discussion for that smaller toter added. Thank you.
Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My fellow committee members have spoken to a lot of key points. I'd like to specifically address Alderman Bram's concerns about container size. And I think it's very important for us all to remember that the bid documents we issued asked for some very specific responses. The specific responses would enable us to compare bids against each other. We needed to have parameters so that we could take a look at what each vendor was offering us, and then we gave all of the vendors the option to give us alternatives. How can we save money? How can we change the program? Is there something we didn't think of? You need to bid on what we're asking for so that we have a way of rating each company against the other so that we could understand what we're getting. But we also asked for options, and I think that's an important component to remember. Even though we had these long conversations about what size container we would be looking to price, every company had the option to offer us smaller containers. Only one provider offered this option. We as a committee had lots of discussions about sizes of containers and complexity of the program overall, and that's one of the reasons that we thought 2 containers was going to make rolling out a new program less complex and easier to manage. Vendors told us that the experience they had with other communities was that with the smaller containers, even though people thought they wanted them in the first place, most people turned them back in. Now remember, we're going to a whole new program which is going to involve the entire city of Elmhurst rolling out new trash containers in a relatively short period of time so that we can start pickup from a new company. We did have a vendor who offered us smaller toters, and that was a great option. Unfortunately, they didn't answer the base bid we asked for and then give us this option as an alternative. One of the criteria that was most important to me was the implementation plan. How are we going to get residents informed, toters distributed, new information sent out to people? Who's going to write the brochures? What are they going to say? How are they going to get sent out to people? How are we going to time this? We looked at a variety of implementation plans as they came back from vendors. And unfortunately, some of the vendors gave us really sketchy information. And I wasn't comfortable rolling out a very large and complicated new program based on an implementation plan that said, well, we're going to tell people what we're going to do. I wanted an implementation plan with timing, samples of materials, and language that we were going to use to talk to residents. We got that. We got a really well thought out implementation plan in the bid that we're going with. And I think that's also important to keep in mind and something that we haven't really talked about. It's not just getting garbage cans to people. It's telling them about it, helping them understand what's going to happen, helping them know what's going to be allowed and what isn't. So I think it's probably a good idea for us to take a stab at evaluating how this looks in a year. Are people afraid of a new thing? That happens a lot. Is it going to settle out in a year from now? What's the overall balance of container sizes going to be? We're basing some of our numbers on the experience of other communities and assumptions that people who now have oversized large containers are going to downsize, and that the smaller containers are going to be fine for most people. I'm comfortable with this program as it's been set. I think we have some questions about how container sizes are going to change. Basically, because the base bid that we got this year is last year's general price, we are seeing a step down in the price overall had we continued in the plan that we had. And that's going to be great for everybody. The containers are going to get bigger, but the price is going to be the same as the 32 or 3 gallon containers we have now.
Alderman Pezza.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just like to give a little background as to where I came from and why I, along with Alderman Bram, submitted this referral in the first place. Prior to 2009 being elected, as a resident and a taxpayer, I always paid close attention to where my money was going and how my city council was spending my tax dollars. And for a long time, I recall being outraged when prior city councils and prior leadership and prior city managers didn't go out for bid. And there were 2 specific contracts, and these are 2 of several reasons I actually ran for office. Knowing that the city was having multi-million-dollar contracts and not going out for bid. They were just renewing them and renewing them and renewing them. It's great to know that what you've got is good. It's great to trust the people that you have working for you, but it never hurts to see what else is out there. We do it in our own homes. You want something painted, I think most people get 2 or 3 quotes. So, you know, it was a perfect example. The first one for me was the Superior Ambulance contract. Perfect example. I knew this was a no-bid contract renewed over and over and over. It started at about $440,000 a year. When I was expected to sign on the renewal, not even seeing a contract, I questioned it, worked with staff, They did go out and get other quotes. Lo and behold, the same company who was so good to us all these years came back and we got just about cut in half. So I thought, wow, if we could do that with one little contract, why can't we do this with something like this? So I want to personally thank our new city manager for allowing us as a council and our staff to go out for a new bid. That's what we should have done. It's what we did. The committee and staff did a fabulous job, I believe, and worked hard on this. And we are seeing a savings. We did see many options. That's what it's all about. In the perfect world, everyone would have submitted exactly what we asked for. And we could have compared apples to apples exactly, which is what we would hope for, but that didn't happen. But I think the committee did do their due diligence and examined and weighed out and discussed and tossed around different ideas and thoughts. And at the end of the day, we are still saving money. Some good changes are being made. Unfortunately, the one that appears to be saving more money can't directly be compared to what we have tonight before us for approval. So I do believe the right thing has been done. I'm thankful that we did go out to bid, and we are saving money. We are making some good changes. And once again, I just want to thank city manager and staff and the committee for all their hard work, and hopefully this new program will work well. I would just like to mention, it's also my hope, since the company we've been using will still be servicing us, and we're saying how great it is and how easy they make staff's life, that would also mean we will not be raising our administration fees at all, so that the savings will be passed on to the residents. So thank you.
Alderman Kennedy, then Alderman Morley.
I just wanted to make a point of clarification. The administrative fees are those fees that are the costs that are related to the city's managing of that. So it has really nothing to do with anything we have here in front of us, what it's going to cost Allied to do the work. The additional is what it costs the city to administer that program. And so as we go in time here towards the new fiscal year, we'll be evaluating that in committee, which ultimately comes to the price of what each resident's going to pay.
Alderman Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank the committee for their hard work on this. I know that I've been bugging Alderman Kennedy about a toter for recycling since I think before he got elected.
You're welcome.
But I disagree with one part of the report, and that's how many people will shift from the 95 gallon to the 65 gallon. I think it will be closer to the 12.5%. We'll remain with the 95 gallon. Speaking from personal experience and also from other folks who have families similar to my size, what's the current garbage sticker cost? Is it $1.50, $1.25?
I think it's $2.40.
$2.25 for a sticker? Yeah. 5 years ago when I switched over, it was approximately 3 or 4 extra bags of garbage a month. That was my threshold, okay? But the only option offered to me was going from a 32 gallon to a 95 gallon. Well, I'd say about 48 weeks out of the year, I fill that maybe 2/3 of the way. Just enough where I don't want to have 2 cans in my garage, just enough where I don't want to have to buy stickers or run out at 11 o'clock at night when I run out of stickers. With the exception of Christmas and maybe the occasional party, I think I will be using the 65 gallon drum. I don't see myself needing the others. I will occasionally use the sticker 2 or 3 weeks a year. But I don't believe it's going to be 20% remaining. I think it's going to get close to that 12.5%. The contractor that the committee is recommending actually has a cheaper price for the 65 gallon toter. And also I will say that from 2 other points. One is that the 33 gallon, everybody has a different one. I can tell you this, every day on garbage day I'm picking up stuff out of the street on behalf of my neighbors, and I think that this will eliminate that. And finally, I don't want garbage trucks in my neighborhood 4 days out of the week. We're talking weekdays now, not just necessarily 4. But in the city, I also agree with the committee's recommendation for a 3-day pickup. Thank you.
Alderman Mulliner.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the committee and the staff for all their hard work on this. I think this is an excellent job. I think it's a lot of hard work that's gone into this, and I definitely agree that I think the number is going to be significantly lower on this 96 as well, or the 95 toter. I think it's going to be in that 12% range. I really think people are going to drop down and go to the 65.
Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After hearing just two aldermen speak about how the low percentage of a 96-gallon toter, I just want to throw out there with some humor, why are we even doing a 96-gallon toter then as an option? Shouldn't we be doing a 32-gallon and a 65-gallon? We're sitting here, up here, saying that 96-gallon toter will be anywhere from 20% to 10%, and we're accommodating the 96-gallon toter as one of the prime options here. I'm saying it with half humor here, but I just heard two aldermen make the statement that they think that the 96-gallon toter will be utilized by very minimal residents, anywhere from 10 to 20%. And I've received feedback, we've heard feedback, that the 32-gallon is key to our seniors, which I know in my ward is over 60% of my ward. So I'm a little bit confused on why we would eliminate the option that is a primary concern and keep an option that does not seem to be. So thank you.
All right, any other discussion? And I guess I'll throw in my minimal comment. I too want to thank the committee. I know you did put in a lot of work on it, and you did an excellent job, and Staff Director Hughes, as always, you've pulled it all together, however the vote goes. But at this point, I'll ask, I guess we can do this in a voice vote. If there's no other discussion. All those in favor of the report say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the report is approved. Thank you. We'll move on to the item 8B, water rate adjustment, and Clerk Spencer, if you'll read the recommendation, please.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee that the City Council direct the City Attorney to prepare an amendment to the Municipal Code of Ordinances, changing the water rate from the city for the City of Elmhurst, effective for usage billed on and after January 1, 2013, as follows. Residential rates per 1,000 gallons, water, new 7.18, current 6.41. Bi-monthly minimum 5.69, current 5.08. For the commercial rates per 1,000 gallons, new 10.76, current 9.61, and bi-monthly minimum 8.51 and a current 7.60. Respectively submitted, Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee, signed by Stephen W. Hipskin, Chairman, Kevin L. York, Vice Chairman, Mark A. Mulliner, and Scott M. Levin.
Very good. You have a motion. Alderman Hipskin with a second by Alderman York. Chairman Hipskin.
Yes. So water prices are, cost of water is going up again. Again, I say because it's the second year in a row, but if we take a look at why this is happening, and it's really what it's all about. As you know, the Elmhurst buys their water from the DuPage Water Commission, which buys their water from the City of Chicago. The City of Chicago announced a couple of years ago that they were going to significantly increase the cost of the water to the DuPage Water Commission. Therefore, the DuPage Water Commission is increasing their cost to us. It's about 20%. This is a true user fee, and it is, you know, your cost will increase as much water as you use. Your current rate is approximately $7.18 per 1,000 gallons. It's going up to $9.24 per gallon. The Finance Committee does not want to raise these rates. Our hand is forced to raise these rates. And I do know that by raising these rates, we are keeping our funds, our water and sewer funds in very good shape. It's inevitable that we have to pass this cost on to everyone, so I'd ask the council to support this wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Alderman York.
Thank you, Your Honor. Alderman Hipskin's done a fine job of explaining this. We're just, dealt with some circumstances here emanating from the city of Chicago and some rate increases that are beyond our control. When we looked at this last year, it was something that we studied pretty hard as a committee, not only the impact it would have in the initial year, but kind of trying to look down the road a little bit to, look out and see how things were going to be affected down the road, as this is, certainly 4 years ahead of us. It was at that point in time. And we did what we did last year, 20%, and we were kind of thinking that 15% rate increases would be what would need to be needed. And fortunately, with some good circumstances, and we're able to keep that to a 12% rate increase this year. If you look at Schedule A, we're hoping that we can keep it at 12%, where we projected 15 for the next 3 years. We're actually 15 for 2 years, and then down a little bit from there. We're hoping that we can help the situation out. We are acutely aware that this increase in water costs has caused some hardship to the residents. Being this a municipal utility fund, we've got to be mindful of the fund itself, because not only does it pay for water, but it pays for the water distribution. And we've got to make sure that we keep our water distribution system operable and in peak operating condition, respond to emergency situations, and have cash there to do that. And from my perspective, the cash balance is something that I always look at, and where are we going to be several years down the road. And that's evident also on Schedule A, that the last year, the schedule, we're supposed to be between 5.4 and 6.5, and we end up about 4. So we're below the threshold, but still have a sizable amount of money in there to help take care of any emergencies we might have, and to hopefully be able to kind of smooth any increases that we need to do. So this is not something that I personally want to do. I don't think it's something that the committee wants to do, and I'm certain that it's nothing that we as a council want to do. But in a municipal utility fund, we need to make sure that we cover our costs. If we don't cover our costs, that means that the city is subsidizing water usage for someone, and at the end of the day, that's just not quite the right thing to do. So I hope that everybody will take all this into consideration and support this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chairman York. Any comment, other questions? All right, then another report. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that report passes. Reports and recommendations, updates. After 2 weeks on the job, I have not ruined the city, so I will move on from there. I turn it over to City Manager Grabowski for a report on Cool Cities.
Thank you. Very quick history. In 2007, then Mayor Marcucci signed a Cool Cities agreement as a pledge to improving local and global environmental quality. The Elmhurst Cool Cities has since requested that we name a staff representative to the coalition. We've had one in the past, but that person has left. So we're going to name a new person, and that's Gary Smith. After conferring with the department directors, and particularly Director Hughes, we feel that Gary Smith from the Public Works Department would be appropriate for that role. The Elmhurst Cool Cities has also requested that the city reevaluate our commitment to the Cool City cause, and I think this may be appropriate as new administration starts with the city, and as we work towards that, we'll take a look at the committees that we have now and send that to one of the committees as we get into the into the new year. And always the department directors consider that as we go through the budget process as well. So we'll be taking care of that. And that's my update on Cool Cities.
Very good. That would bring us to other business. Any other business to come before the council this evening? Then I will entertain a motion to, I'm sorry, Alderman Plumsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering if City Manager Grabowski could give us an update on the Elgin O'Hare bypass project and where we are.
Be happy to, and thank you for asking in advance. I was able to get the information to your dais spots tonight. You may have been wondering why that was there. Alderman Polomsky had said she would ask about this. Briefly, the Toll Highway Authority has formed an advisory committee. There was an advisory council which was mainly consisted of elected officials from the affected area, and that report has been approved, sent to the governor and approved. And since then, as I said, the Toll Highway Authority has formed an advisory committee which is based on the impact and proximity of the communities to the Elgin O'Hare. They've weighted the number of participants by municipality, and I believe there was a table in the back of one of the packets that shows how many each municipality has on the committee. And our rep is Paul Cook, who is an Elmhurst businessman, currently the chamber president, and also a member of the Maywood Sportsman Club. As you recall from discussions in the past regarding the slip ramp that is being designed off of 294, the Sportsman's Club was very concerned about the proximity. So we think he has a multifaceted and unique perspective on this project. He will attend the committee meetings and then report back to the mayor and myself to give us updates. So that's where we are.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything further on that, Alderman Plumsky? Right. Alderman Pezza.
Thank you. Just if we can clarify when we as a council will be meeting the next time because of the holidays coming up?
I believe it will be the 6th. January 7th.
Monday.
Do we agree on that? Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Then I will wish everyone a happy holidays, happy New Year. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Alderman Bram, second by Alderman Gutenkopf. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?